Hey makeup friends, BH Cosmetics is back with 2 new palettes and I have got them here to share with you today. Let's get into this. As always, I want to welcome you back to my channel, or if you are new here, then hello and welcome. My name is Kara, and on my channel, we like to mix beauty, brains, and the occasional F-bomb. Now, really quickly, obviously I don't have any eyeshadow on. The lip gloss that I'm wearing is Sweetgrass from Cheekbone Beauty. They have just re-released all of their glosses in a new vegan formula, so if that sounds interesting to you, there is a link in my description box down below. And I also have a non-affiliated code with them. It's just Kara, and that'll save you 10%. So before we get into the palettes, I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. If my energy seems a little bit down, or if this review seems a little bit rushed, it's because I'm dealing with a massive headache today. I've had a hellish week. It's been a very stressful week at work, and I woke up this morning with a massive headache. I went back to sleep for a couple of hours hoping that that would help, but no, I woke up and it was worse. So here we are. The ring light feels like it's burning into my retinas just a touch. So we're going to do this sort of as quickly as we can, and I'm going to try to do it in such a way that I don't have to spend a ton of time editing, because honestly, staring at a screen is not what I want to do today. But I did want to sit down, I did want to play with these palettes and share my thoughts on them with you, because they did just hit the market a couple of days ago. Now, just a little bit of information on these palettes. First of all, we have Party in Puerto Rico, and this is a very warm toned palette. I am going to do swatches, but I'm just going to show you the inside very quickly. And then the other one here is Passion in Paris, and this one is a lot deeper and a little bit more moody, if you will, but still has a nice balance of shades in there, in my opinion. Both of these palettes retail for $17 on the BH Cosmetics website. I believe they're also available on the Beauty Bay website as well, although I'll have to confirm and just put a yes or no down here. Now, I want to thank the people that DM me over on Instagram and ask me if I have a code with BH. I wish. I don't think BH Cosmetics has any idea that I exist, so I don't have a code with them. The code that I use is for Dupe That. There are other influencer codes available, and they are listed on the BH Cosmetics website. I'll just insert a little screenshot to show you where to find them. So if there is a particular content creator in that list that you really like and support, please feel free to use one of their codes. I wish I had a code with BH, but sadly, I don't. If you want to help me maybe get on their radar, if you buy any of their palettes and post pictures onto Instagram, tag them, tag me. That would be amazing, but absolutely you do not need to do that. Anyways, let's move on because I kind of feel like I'm shilling myself. All right, so like I said, they're both $17, recently available. Let's get into it straight away. I haven't even swatched these myself, so this is very much a first impressions, but I want to do some finger swatches. I'm going to do them live rather than pre-film them and then insert a video, just so that we get genuine reaction and we get to do it together. It's more fun that way. So let's start off with Puerto Rico, and then we'll move on to the Paris palette. And then what I think I'm going to do, rather than doing 2 separate eye looks, I'm going to do a look that combines the 2 palettes. I hope that's okay. I'm eyeing the blue in Paris and the orange in Puerto Rico, and I really want to do a look with the 2 of those colors. I don't know what else I'm going to do with it, but those 2 colors are going to feature. Okay, we will get to that momentarily. Let's get into the swatches. All right, I'm going to start off by saying that a lot of these shade names are in Spanish, and that is a language I do not speak, so I'm not even going to try because I'll just butcher it. And so what I'm going to do is just go row by row. So this is the top row of the palette. Maybe I should put it into frame so you can actually see it. There we go. All right, and on to the second row. That's the orange that I most definitely want to play with. I can't remember if I said or not, but I don't have any primer on my arm. These are just dry finger swatches. Now on to the third row. fun color. I like that. And then finally the last row. So as expected, these do swatch very nicely. The shimmers are really smooth, there's no chunkiness in them whatsoever, and those mattes are very nicely pigmented. I will say the red is the only one that has a little bit of like a dry feel to it. It could be because these are vegan, and so whatever they have to do to get the red pigment might be changing the texture a little bit. But having said that, it still swatches out beautifully, and I love that it retains its like true red color. It doesn't pull pink. All right, we're going to handle the Paris one the same way because despite being Canadian, I do not speak French. So this is the top row of this palette. Now on to the second row. And then the third row. That's pretty. Oh, I like that. And then the last row of the palette. That's a really pretty red there. Oh, and so is that. Ooh. So this matte blue here is the blue that I was really drawn to, and yet I think it's the most disappointing of the finger swatches. So, my initial thought is to avoid that color. However, I'm actually going to double down and ensure that I use that one to see how it actually applies with a brush, because finger swatches can be deceiving one way or the other. Sometimes they oversell the shadow, sometimes they undersell. The only way to really know is to apply it with a brush. So I am going to make sure that I use that shade so that I can really put it to the test. All right, so I don't intend to use a ton of shades in this eye look simply because, like I said, I'm feeling crappy. I got my dose 2 of the vaccine just a couple of days ago, so I don't know if this is like just a delayed side effect or if it's just a culmination of a crappy week. I'm not sure, but my head kind of feels like it's in a vice, so I don't really have a lot of creativity going on today. Having said that, let's get started. So I'm going to go in with the Puerto Rico palette and that really bright, fun orange up here. I'm going to apply that with a fluffy brush, and I'm going to use that as like a transition shade. Just so you're aware, I do have my eyes primed with the Gerard Cosmetics Clean Canvas Base in the shade Medium, and then I just patted a tiny bit of powder over top just to take away some of the tackiness. So I'm going to go in, oh, I've got a wild rogue eyebrow hair, awesome. And just apply that and blend it out. You can already see the pigmentation on this. That is one of the things that I love so much about BH Cosmetics is that their mattes, they perform better than a lot of high-end mattes. Like, they're so pigmented and yet they remain really blendable. Like, sometimes you get really pigmented shades and then they just stick there. Like, wherever you pat it down, that's where you're going to see the most concentration, and it's not going to blend out easily, or you're going to have to spend a ton of time. It's applied, like, what was that? 3 seconds? Like, it's done. That, oh my gosh. Okay. I freaking love BH Cosmetics. I truly, truly do. When I saw them post these, I was like, yeah, I'm buying both. Like, you know I am. So here we are. Now, because I want to test out this matte sort of cobalt blue in the Paris palette, this one right here, I don't normally apply a matte shade all over my lid, but I'm going to today because I want to see what this is capable of. So I'm going to pick it up on I don't know what the hell this is. It's a sort of fluffy, sort of flat hybrid brush. It's from Volair. It's the E03 brush. And I'm just going to pick that up because I think it's going to be dense enough to lay the shadow down nicely, but fluffy enough to be able to blend the edges. At least that's the hope. So let's go ahead and pack that on the lid. I didn't need to worry about the pigmentation. See, finger swatches can't always be trusted. Like that is totally fine already. And I think this brush might be just a little bit too big, particularly for that inner corner. Wait a second. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta flip this to the magnified side. I just want to see something. Pigmentation is moving just a little bit on the lid. Like the shadow is following the brush just a little bit, and it is shearing out the more I mess around with it. So I think what I'm going to do is find a flatter brush. I'm going to use this one. This is also from BH Cosmetics. And rather than move the shadow back and forth, I'm going to just pat it across the lid so that it has like even pigmentation. Yeah, that is better. Maybe having a stickier base would work as well. And I'm getting some fallout onto my face. Okay. Let's try it on the other eye with just this brush. I'm going to pick up more of that shadow. Going to tap the excess off and then pat again to see if that fallout is resolved. Okay, no fallout on that side, but it's also not quite as pigmented. Whoop, I just hit my nose. So let's build it up a little bit. It's doable. That is totally doable. I'm not horribly upset about that. I'm not wild on the fallout for sure. So let's see if we can get rid of that without dragging the blue everywhere. There, I think that'll do it. Okay. Okay, so it's doable. It's not the best matte that they've put out, but it is workable. Okay, now I do want to deepen up the outer corner and run a bit of a deeper shade through the crease. So I'm going to go back to the Paris palette and pick up this deep navy blue over here on a MAC 221 brush. I'm just going to apply that into the outer corner, build that pigment up a little bit, and then run it through the crease. It's blending into the orange really nicely. And it's also laying down on top of that lighter blue nicely as well. I'm not noticing fallout with this shade, and I'm not having that same issue of the pigment just sort of moving back and forth as I blend. All right, I'm going to go back to the Puerto Rico palette and pick up more of that bright orange on a slightly smaller fluffy brush and just blend again where that dark blue and the orange meet. I'm tempted to just stick with oranges for underneath the lower lash line, but I'm really drawn to this pink, in the Puerto Rico palette that, which one is it? Right here. This shade right here. I think it's so pretty. I honestly don't know that it goes with this eye look, but if I'm being perfectly honest, once I finish filming this, I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to edit, get this video up, and then go back to bed. So if ultimately the look looks crazy, I can just wash it off. It's totally fine. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that pink shade up and use that under my lower lash line. Oh my goodness, it's such a pretty color. That is such a pretty pink. Oh, I like that. You know what, I think I can make this work and be a little bit more cohesive if I bring a dark blue shimmer down into this outer portion as well. So I'm gonna go back into Paris and I'm debating. There's a really deep blue here and then there's more like a deep purple. I think I'm gonna go with the purple just because it's gonna tie in with that pink, hopefully a little bit better. So I'm gonna use the same brush and then just connect that on that outer portion and blend those two shades together. That looks a little bit more cohesive, I think. Okay. For even more cohesion, I'm going to bring some orange onto that lower lash line as well. From the Puerto Rico palette, I'm going to go in with this shade right here. And now that a lot of that pink has just been covered up, I'm going to go back in with the pink and run it along the center portion under the lash line. And just to buff out all of those shadows along the lower lash line, I'm going to go back into Puerto Rico and pick up a little bit of this matte pink shade here. All right, I'm feeling like the matte blue is just a little bit flat considering how much shimmer is underneath the lower lash line. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this white shimmer shadow here in the Paris palette, and I'm going to pick that up with my finger and just pat that over the center portion of my eyelid. Now, normally I would use that exact same shadow as my inner corner highlight, but for today, I'm going to go matte in the inner corner, and I'm going to go in with this bright yellow in the Puerto Rico palette just to add another pop of color, because why not, right? Why not? All right, and there is the final look. Very bright and colorful, a little bit more colorful than I was anticipating it being, but here we are. It was fun to play nonetheless. So now that you've had a look at it, let's wrap up with some final thoughts. Excellent timing. My children just got home. It's gonna get hella loud really quickly. Let's do this fast. Okay. So when I first saw the pictures of them, I was immediately drawn to Party in Puerto Rico. This is the warmer toned palette. It kind of spoke to my soul, and this is the one that I thought I was going to enjoy more. But now that I have them in my hands and I've had an opportunity to swatch them out, the color story of Passion in Paris, I love. I like the balance of tones in here as well. Like, even the inclusion of the nice lilac shade and then these red tones down here can help warm up any other look that you make. I like that the shimmers, you have almost like a lilac-y sort of violet shimmer here, a deeper purple, and then like a navy, almost mixed with a hint of silver in there. I just think it's really, really pretty. I was a little bit disappointed, I gotta say, with this cobalt. When I first applied it, as you saw in the application portion, I was like, oh, I didn't need to worry, pigmentation's there. And then I moved the brush and the pigmentation moved with it. So not super excited about that on initial application. Like I said, I think if I had left my eye base a little bit stickier and it had something more to hold on to, I think that would have made a difference. So I'm going to continue playing with it. It's not a write-off for me. It is workable in the end. I mean, you can see it here. Patting it on with a flatter, denser brush really helped. With respect to the Puerto Rico palette, I mean, I don't have any complaints. Obviously, I didn't use all of the shades in it, but even finger swatching them, like I said, they're all very smooth with the exception of that more red shade down here. Again, that could just be the formulation because it is a vegan palette. All of BH Cosmetics are vegan and cruelty-free in case you're not aware, so there's that information. So sometimes without that carmine pigment, whatever they have to use to create the red, that might be adjusting the texture a little bit. I don't know, but even having said that, with my finger at any rate, it still applies very nicely and the pigmentation is there. So it's just a minor note that it just feels a little bit drier. That's not to say that it's flaky or cracking in the pan or anything of that sort. It just feels a little bit different than the rest of them. All of these shimmers in both palettes are very smooth, very creamy. They apply really nicely. I don't expect any issues with longevity with these shimmer shadows just based on experience with so many other BH palettes. So this ranks right up there in terms of the performance with those two exceptions that I noted, the slightly dry pan in this palette and then that cobalt blue in the other. It's certainly not a deal breaker for me. I mean, it's not to the point where I'm going to say like, oh, stay away from these palettes, they're not up to par. It's one palette or one shade out of 16 in each. In one case, it just feels different, but it still swatches out nicely. In the other, you just have to work a little bit more than what you would typically have to with a matte shade from BH. But at that, it's still not up to the level of some of the other shadows that I've worked with in the past, trying to build them up. I'm specifically thinking of a Morphe palette, a 9-pan palette that I tried from them, gosh, back in the fall, I think. And I was just so frustrated that I ultimately returned the palette. The pigmentation just moved with the brush, but even patting it down, the intensity never built up and it was just a very patchy pigment. This one, it does build up. So this one is still miles ahead of the Morphe palette that I tried, but it's just a little bit of effort involved with it. So there's that. I'm going to leave it at that because the more I harp on it, the more it sounds like a true negative, but it's really not. It's just a matter of effort. I don't have any true complaints about these palettes at this point. Granted, it's a first impressions. I expect them to perform well, and they do. They blend, there's pigmentation. The shimmers are just such a nice formula. I really, really like the shimmer shadows from BH Cosmetics. You can pick them up with a brush or your finger. They last all day on the eyes, and they are very impactful. That's what I like in a shimmer shadow. So this is up to the regular standard that I expect from BH Cosmetics, and overall, I think they're a great value. You're getting cruelty-free vegan products, $17 for a 16-pan palette. I like that they have redone their packaging as well to remove the mirror so that from an environmental standpoint, they're a bit more friendly in that sense as well. So it's not just lip service when they talk about sustainable or clean products. They're also extending that into their packaging as well, which I appreciate. So with all of that said, I am going to wrap the video up here. I'd love to hear from you in the comments whether these are palettes that pique your interest, if you intend to pick up one or both, all of that kind of stuff. Let me know down below. But for now, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.